Hi, I'm Ben, one of your co-hosts for this podcast. This episode is recorded on Gadigal land, where storytelling has always been central to culture and knowledge sharing. From songlines to carvings, from spoken word to ceremony, the custodians of this country, who are part of the Eora Nation, have a long and deep history of engaging with stories and storytelling. As we explore the term engagement today, we acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander storytelling as an ongoing act of engaging presence, memory and continuity, and we pay our respects to elders past and present.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Busting Buzzwords, the podcast where we tackle these words that mean so much to our work, yet so little, in order to, what, Ben?
Bust
them! And today we've got an awesome guest with us, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Thank you. My name's Kirsten Andrews. I'm the Vice President External Engagement at the University of Sydney.
Right. Big title. What does it mean?
It means that I'm responsible for bringing the outside partners to the university and helping the talent and opportunities inside the university have impact outside the world.
Wow, big job.
I don't do all of that work, but I try to facilitate it and support it as best I can.
Thank you so much for taking time to be with us this morning, Kirsten.
Yeah, and you brought with you not just your amazingly fashionable backpack, but also something else. You brought us a buzzword. What is that word?
I thought it would be good to talk about why I think the term external relations is outdated and why I prefer external engagement, which is why I requested a title change when I started in this role.
And we are so accommodating with title changes, Clara, aren't we?
Yes, we are. So your position used to be Vice President External Relations, and it's gone to External Engagement. Why did you want it changed?
It was a title that was of its time. And I think that the title External Relations conjures up an image for many inside and outside the university of somebody with a professional blow wave and a pencil skirt trying to make bad stories about the university disappear from the media.
We're talking about a fixer.
A fixer, a spin doctor, those sorts of things. And anyone who's met me in person knows that I'm not somebody in a pencil skirt with a professional blow wave, but more importantly, I'm somebody who wants to help support the teaching and research at the university and help drive our impact. And yes, I would like to do that via the media. I think our marketing communications is a core part of that, social media, those sorts of things. But I think the best way of doing that is via engagement, which to me conjures up a much stronger image of a two-way partnership. So how do other people outside the university take advantage of the great talent and opportunity and knowledge building that occurs here and the talent that we produce through our undergraduate and postgraduate teaching through their future employment, but also how do we have impact on that world to strengthen our teaching and research. So I think it conjures up a better image of what we've said in our strategy. For example, we talk about we want to be a partner of choice by 2032. We want the university to have more impact and more issues relevant to society than any time in our 170-year history. These are the things that drive me every day. And how do we do that most effectively across all that we do?
Let's go back maybe a tiny bit and think a bit more about what you were saying at the beginning, pencil skirt. No, just kidding. But so what's the one thing that in this huge, really complex, cluster that you've just presented us? So what's the one thing that you think you wish that people would understand a bit more about? Help us, untangle, make sense of this kind of huge construct that is engagement, because it's so difficult to really wrap your head around, I think, sometimes.
There are two answers to that. One is the sort of functions of the university that report to me, and that's you think about Sydney Future Students. We bring high-quality students to the university, and at the time that we're recording this, that's the students are about to get their results for this year and the domestic placements for next year and our international
impact. You can feel the tension.
Yes, Info Day is this week.
Like laptops being opened. Keys being clicked.
Futures being determined, choices being made. It's an exciting time of year. And we want to encourage students to find their path that's right for them, no matter where that might be. But then you go through to the other functions, the marketing, communications, media, events, government and industry engagement, and of course our museums and the Seymour Centre. So whether it's a cultural impact, a student impact, or helping our teaching and researching teams have their impact on the world. But I think if your question is how would I like people inside the university to see the work that we do, it's the idea that engaging with the outside world could extend the strength of your teaching and research to make it better and to increase the university's imprint on the world. I spent a lot of time leaving campus or talking to people outside the university about the wonders that are the university. And after a long time working here, I haven't found all of them yet. I find a new one every week.
Right.
But I like to share that with the world. But I also want to encourage people inside the university to think about how is their work relevant beyond the campus and how can that extend and strengthen. And it might be somebody with an interesting data problem or to have a different understanding or somebody who'd like to hire one of your future students. But no matter what it is, there's an opportunity for all of us, I think, in bringing that more two-way engagement to our work.
And that's interesting because coming from an academic perspective, engagement is not something, I mean, I'll talk personally here, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, but engagement is not the thing we think about. Like when we get into an academic position in our daily work, we think about teaching, we think about research, we think about admin, but we don't necessarily think about engagement. And I still struggle thinking about ways in which I could share what I do with the wider world. And I think because it's something that's so foreign, it's something that I struggle with. Yeah. And so the question is, how can we as academics think better or think more effectively or efficiently about engagement? What does engagement look like from an academic side? I don't know. I'm just throwing questions in the air now.
And just, to throw one back to you, Kirsten, there is, because you were just saying that, you hear stories and sometimes maybe they stick with you. So, and going off of Clara's, sometimes the academic thing might not be to really think about, how can I translate this, thing I'm working on into like an engaging story from the outside, the external world there. So what's one thing that, maybe one story or one thing about a story that you've heard and you immediately know, this far out, this the world needs to know, and the academic goes, I never thought about it, and you might just strangle them. Like, how can you not think about it like that? So how do you deal with that? Like, because I guess you are seeing these things that people here are doing from, a very different perspective than sometimes they do, or because they are so on the inside. So can you talk us through how do you actually think as like the engagement, not queen, czar, empress, whatever title, maybe not the monarch.
I'm a Republican.
The Republicans.
I think the question I ask most often when I meet a new colleague is, particularly if I don't understand their research in any depth or their field of knowledge at all, I say to them, what's the one thing you'd change if you had a magic wand based on what you know? And quite often that gets me to an amazing opportunity to explain their work to the world. So through that way, I've learned about people who think speech pathology assessment should be compulsory for all 4-year-olds. I've learned about people who are working on tools to help identify when a COVID patient has to go to hospital and when they are okay to stay in a nursing home. I've understood people who want to move a magic wand. These ideas aren't always inexpensive or practical, but they help me understand people who want to make a difference in the world. And then if I can understand it in that simple way, then I know that I or the teams I work with can help communicate that to people.
I mean, that's brilliant. I wouldn't trust us with a magic wand right now. I think so close to the end.
What would your answer be?
That's a big one. I don't know. Based on our research and what we know? Oh, my God. I don't know. I work on crime fiction. What would I want?
Think big. Would everybody have to read it? Would if fiction is how we learn empathy, what would you make it a requirement to understand?
Oh, my God. I think that the texts that I research tell us something about a given society at a given time that we might not otherwise see. So it shines a light. It shines a light on, say, you want to learn more about, I don't know, post-war French society, boom, crime fiction. You want to learn more about, what's happening in Iceland in the 1980s, bam, crime fiction. So I wouldn't necessarily...
So can I just say, so your magic wand thing would actually be to make everybody buy that fiction so they have to read
Not
it?
necessarily buy, but engage with it.
Right.
Engage with it.
Soft coercion.
But I mean, you don't necessarily need to like something to engage with it.
Sorry, if I can just, because I think that's the thing about engagement, which I think people sometimes don't understand, and sometimes it gets a bit of a bad reputation. It's like, ooh, engagement, I have to sell my stuff to the outside. It's beneath me, blah, blah, blah. So I guess it's not really that, joking, you're saying coercion, but it's how do you make people care about these great stories? Because sometimes, as you were saying, we are not maybe our own greatest, advocates in these spaces and have not maybe learned to really sell or, not sell, but what would you call it selling? So what would you call this process?
So I think it's all of that. So the media team has a rule that they say they work with the willing. So we won't make anybody, we can't make anybody do media interviews. It's not a requirement of any part of your job. However, what we do try to do is to make sure that anytime we encourage people that there's a benefit in that for you in that profile, you get to share your work and that you have the confidence to do that with a degree of expertise and the support to do that from the teams when you engage. And so we know there's a lot of interest in the work that happens here, but it's also good for the university and hopefully good for those individual academics to be known that way. And they keep a list of people who found funding partners, researchers, collaborative researchers, people who want to work with people from doing that high-profile work. So it doesn't inherently there's not a direct line between that and increase in teaching and research. But in any profession, being known for what you're good at and and helping to connect with others who are good or interested in that work helps advance your career. And we think that does that at the same time as growing and supporting the University of Sydney's reputation, because we know that as an institution of great research, it's absolutely critical to attracting students, to attracting government and industry partners, and to attracting potential staff. Growing that reputation is helpful. So every time an individual academic engages in any way, whether it be speaking at a business event, meeting a government minister, attending a conference of some kind, it helps both the individual and the collective of the institution.
And that's the thing, I think, because, you're presenting it in a very eloquent, nice, almost easy way. And sometimes I talk to, early career colleagues or other people who are like, or maybe senior scholars, and they go, oh, I'm so nervous. I can't do a phone interview. I can't go in a studio. My nerves are getting the better of me. This is impossible. What do you tell those people? Because I think it's not a one-size-fits-all approach sometimes. And because just from our little chat, you were really open about, this is not this pencil, what was it, the pencil skirt?
Pencil skirt.
Blow wave
spin doctor.
Yeah. So it's not this evil kind of like it has to fit into a certain smooth mold. So how can you help different kinds of people? Because I think, a lot of times it's all about, as you were saying before, the individual and their specific, because none of us are doing the same research. So how do you help people finding their story and, being this, because I think you're an amazingly supportive organization. So how does that happen?
I think our teams would like for people to call us to seek that help out. I'm drumming up business here. But I think the idea, if people want to engage in the world, we're used to dealing with people who are nervous or who may not have much experience. Understand that if you call and say, I'm freaking out, you won't be the first call that week or probably even that day. That's totally normal. The skill set for being a great academic doesn't mean you also need to be great radio talent or love seeing yourself on TV. I think I worked for politicians for a long time before I joined the university. So I was used to working for people who desperately wanted to be on the media and desperately wanted to be very high profile. And so when I came to the university, finding people for whom it wasn't part of their DNA, they wanted to get great teaching results or they wanted to get published. They wanted to get their latest research grant funded. They didn't want to be on the radio as a core thing they wanted to do in the morning. And so that's why I think the concept of working with the willing, trying to talk to people about the benefit for them, because it shouldn't just be, I'll help out the university. Some people want to do that, but some people don't. But they've got to see that there's something in it. But I think there's been enough stories of people getting an email from somebody as a follow-up for a radio interview or hearing a bit of feedback about the impact of their work. There are some people who like doing high-profile work, others who don't. And so for those who don't love it, and nobody, even the most self-conscious politician likes hearing themselves on the radio. Hearing our own voices can be hard, but hopefully the impact of that or the result after making that investment is worthwhile. And we are here to help. Training's available, support's available to encourage people to do that, whether it be through helping people speak at TEDx or the Sydney Ideas program, or we have a fabulous one called Raise the Bar where staff go out to bars and talking to people with a drink in their hands is it can be a little intimidating, but we're there to help you support how to tell that story in 20 minutes or less and how to take questions. And what we found is that it's not just on the night, but the people who have that, they say, next time the radio producer calls them or they get a request, they know I've spoken to people in a bar for 20 minutes without slides. And once you've done that, you can do anything.
One thing, because I'm working with a philosopher who, was made a point about how does the right message reach the wrong ears. So really this foundational problem of, we talk about climate change, how can we tell people because they know, but how do they really know about it? So there's, different problems, I guess, that present themselves in this space, and you have to deal with all of them. But as you were just saying, you were working with politicians that I guess, their business is to be in front of a camera or a mic and talk to people about things. So where do you think is the biggest difference going from politics to a university? Is there a difference, or do you think, it's just all the same? So how does that?
I think it's very different, but the thing that is the same and where my skill set becomes useful is that politicians are like people who work at a university. They're nearly all people who want to make the world a better place. What gets interesting is that they don't all agree on what that looks like.
Right.
And the constant quest for improvement and disagreement over where that is and how to strive for that agreement. So having spent a large part of my career with one or the other of those groups, I don't think I could go back to somebody where it was about the share price or profit revenues anymore. It's just not interesting. But containing and developing that passion to have the highest impact in both of my sort of mini careers so far has been where things have been most given the greatest value to me. But it's a constant quest and learning.
You mentioned before the media, and I think the media works on a very different timeline to academics. And that's something that can be quite intimidating in a way, like when there's a media review or a media request that's funneling in through our discipline channels and say, hey, can you have this done for yesterday, or can you have this done for tomorrow?
Who's free in an hour.
Exactly. And then you do it, and then you end up not being called back because they've decided to drop that topic or whatever. So that's also one of the things that could potentially be challenging with engaging with the media, and it's personally turned me off of wanting to contribute with the media because it's happened to me 3 times, and I'm just like, well, as I really want to try and I really want to get it out there, and I actually turned down an opportunity last week or the week before when the French Prime Minister was booted out after the government censorship. Someone said, hey, do you want to contribute on it? And I was like, I was actually on carer's leave, and I said no. I would have loved to. I would have loved to because I've got this passion for French politics, and I thought, missed opportunity. But I think it's through the missed opportunities that you go, maybe next time if the same thing comes along, I'll do it. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is it might not be smooth sailing engaging with the media, but I think we should persevere.
I would agree with you, and I would never suggest that somebody needs to interrupt their carer's leave to do media. I think you've got to be on carer's leave, but there is an opportunity, and so the issue is, how do you feel prepared to do that quickly? How do you feel confident enough so that you can take advantage? The media always it's called the news for a reason. It's always new, and so it's happening right now. And if the government falls, that's going to be interesting now, not next week or next month. And so the journalists are under their own time pressures as well. And what we're trying to navigate is how the journalists get what they want and how academics or our staff who engage with the media get what they need from that to a happy medium.
And I think that's the key, because what we may think is accurate or appropriate as academics might be a completely different scale to what a journalist might think is appropriate.
Yeah. Just, on that specific note, I think that having now had a couple of guests here, and it's always coming down, I guess, at least to me, to that negotiation. Like the same with teaching, what does the students need and want, and what do we as a teacher? So it's always, like you cannot give the other party, 100%. Otherwise, like we be PhDs all the way and nobody fails. And, all these things about, so what is it that this negotiation shows us about the dynamic process of the university, what we want to do here? Absolutely. And I think, the same with research, if everybody got their way, there'd be no new knowledge because there's no need.
There's no battle. And I think to bring it back to the word engagement, if you think of it like a Venn diagram, what do other people want? What do I want? Yeah. Where is the sweet spot in the middle? So there are some people who would like to fund research that we don't wish to do.
Right.
There are some people who would like to hire our students if only we could get them through a Bachelor of Arts in 6 months, not 3-4 years.
Right.
Those sorts of things. There are accommodations we will not make to meet the needs of the outside world, and then there are accommodations that we will. So if employers tell us, I'd like more critical thinking or I need more digital capability, and we're starting to hear this, then those are the kinds of conversations that we want to feed into curriculum design. However, we're not the kind of institution that just does commission.
Do you find that, and I think that's really interesting, do you find that this is getting harder, this negotiation and telling external and internal stakeholders about, so look, this people is what's going on, this is what we have to deal with, or because I know and open secret, there's different opinions at this institution and, people have opinions, everybody does, as it should be. And how do we negotiate that? Because, that with social media and, elections and all of these things, there's always, as you came from politics, so there's all these opinions, and how, I guess, do you then, because it all kind of intersects, I think, in this engagement narrative. So how do you deal with that?
So my rule is listen first. So often I find somebody in the first opinion or the first thing they ask of me is something with which I might personally disagree, or I think the university might not be able to help them. But I then think if I'm at a function, a stand-up function, socialising with someone, I think 3 more questions. Let's see where we go. And quite often there are things where you say, I don't think that person's up for the kind of partnership that we might offer, and that is fine. I then now know not to waste any time in trying to make something happen. But often you can ask more questions and often get to the bottom of where somebody starts. So somebody might start with an opinion about a story about the university that they've read in the newspaper that day, and I ask them where they read that, why they think that, what led them, and what do they think we should do. So quite often people then talk themselves into understanding, say they've read an individual opinion of an academic with whom they disagree, and they're expressing this view to me, and I say, do you think that the university should censor individual academics? Most people say no. They do agree with that, and I say, well, so if I disagreed with that, that would be okay, wouldn't it? Oh, yes. So you wouldn't want people like me preventing people from expressing their individual opinion, because would you agree that the great strength of universities is that there is that diversity and there is that conflict and quest for new ideas? And even the person who starts with a position very strongly against the university because of one individual's opinion, 5 to 10 minutes later, they accept that. They might continue to disagree as vigorously with that individual's opinion, but they also accept that it wouldn't be good for society if we were to silence those people. So it's quite interesting to have, and that's a conversation I've had many times with people. So to see how people understand, hopefully that means that they leave with a stronger understanding of what we do and a greater acceptance of the diversity of opinion that is any university.
It's fascinating, this negotiation, this idea that it's through conversation that you actually break down the barriers about when it comes to external engagement, and this image of the Venn diagram struck me as the perfect definition of what engagement is, external engagement, because you'll never be able to get something, or never, we can be idealists and think that we can have the perfect partnership where you give everything that you can give, and in return you're being given everything that you need, and there's no compromise that needs to be made. But this idea of the Venn diagram between, what we can offer, what they can offer, what's best for the institution, our students, all of this, to me is striking. You know, coming into this conversation, I had no idea about what external engagement really is, and I think this will to compromise and this reciprocal compromise, I will say, to strive for a mutual understanding, a mutual vision is, I don't know, I feel very enlightened right now about external engagement.
And this is saying something, something.
Yeah.
But I think, what really strikes me as interesting, and maybe, for people listening to this again and again, is not that every time we record, it's research, teaching, admin, working in this place. It's really we're all doing the same thing. We're negotiating, we're trying to, be good partners for learning, for research, for, different people with different ideas, different ways of thinking or wanting, to engage here on our terms. And then we find that we have to, change these things, and particularly, throwing it to colleagues in Indigenous studies, sometimes they have very difficult conversations, but the truth-telling that needs to happen around these things is important. So if you had a magic wand and you could, bibbidi-bobbidi-boo your way into people's, #Disney, into people's, heads, and just say, so this is the one thing you could make them understand effortlessly, easily about engagement. What would that one thing be?
I think it would be exactly as we've just discussed, that there's a great opportunity to strengthen the impact of the work. And if I were to take my Venn diagram metaphor a little further, what we know is that if people, and there's really good data across the university on this, is that if you work with a partner once and that works well, then you get repeat business. So while it is hard to put yourself out there with a new partner and meet new people the first time, the chances of getting an additional partner across the university, if they've worked with us once successfully, then it's somebody else is pushing on a slightly open door with that same partner. So the more we do, there's a real multiplier effect that we can do here. And I like to think of the circles in the Venn diagram creating more and more overlap as opportunity becomes. We know that institutions, whether they be a government department or a not-for-profit or a corporate partner, if they've worked with us, they understand what we do, then their expectations of us are more likely to be the kinds of work that we want to do, and they understand the timelines that we operate to, the quality of the work that happens here, the ethics that come into each piece of work that happens at a university that may not happen for other partners that you might go to for alternative kinds of work. And so they start to see the great benefit of working with us. So I think if I could get everybody to put on each other's shoes for a little bit and see those perspectives, that would be what I'd use my magic wand for.
Well, Clara is wearing these nice, airy Birkenstock kind of things, so we might just do that in a moment.
What are your feet?
Swap some shoes.
Swap some shoes, right? Yeah, if you can.
I'm an elegant 12.
Yeah. You might have some trouble fitting in that.
Well,
no, I was going to say, I think I mean, from a purely selfish point of view, I'm really enjoying this conversation because it's bringing to me something I had absolutely no idea about. One of them, I've been in the university about 10 years now. One of the most nebulous things has always been engagement, external engagement. It's like, how do we do this? What it is? How can we make it meaningful? And I think you've really broken it down to me in very user-friendly terms.
Oh, wonderful. Well, even if you're the only one, that's made my morning, so thank you.
It's really, it changes so much because external engagement is this one thing that's always brought to us at a very, I don't want to say corporate level, but almost because it feels so remote from what we normally do, and having an easy conversation about it, very, this wonderful exchange about engagement has completely changed the way I look at it and made it more accessible.
Oh, wonderful.
It made me think, I can actually do this. Doesn't sound that terrible. And so I'm hoping that people who listen to the podcast will also get that from
me
the
too. That would be wonderful. It's my job to champion the opportunities of engagement and the resources available to do that. So I can go home before my second coffee now because I've done my work for the day.
But I mean, honestly, and that's the thing, and just want to give a shout out to Elissa and Liv from the Fast Media team, who I work with a lot. The one thing that I really enjoy all the time is talking to them, about stories, about ideas. And I've never had them, not be super interested. Like, they are the biggest supporters of the researchers in this place, I think, because they really are interested in the stories. And I think that's the one thing, it's this negotiation. So if you pick up the phone or you email them and they say, maybe not this week, but next week, maybe we can put this, like we've just been talking about a story and Liv, was saying, right now the news cycle is difficult to break into, but how about, so I think also, trust the experts.
Yeah, true.
That's wonderful. Yes.
Because we don't have to do it all alone.
No.
Which, you were saying is great. And then sometimes, it's just, I can just speak for myself. I really enjoy talking to them just as much as I enjoy talking to, for instance, the amazing person helping us record this podcast, Jacob Craig. And, just the same thing with Jacob. He's an amazingly expert, person in his field, helping us do this, helping us, other people tell their stories, record their stories, helping also the university doing that with the solutionists. So I guess, it's...
Absolutely. And I think the staff who are not doing teaching and research in the university are overwhelmingly champions for those who are. Yeah. And that's why we work
for the people
here.
in the back.
Yes, yeah. There's the motivation to come and do this work. I don't have the expertise to be a researcher or to be a teacher, but I deeply admire those who do, and I'd much rather work on promoting that work than promoting a major consumer item. It's much more interesting, and I think it has much more impact on the world. And I believe most of my colleagues feel the same way. So the idea that how can we help what's useful to you is a really critical part of what we do.
And I think that's really truly appreciated. I think sometimes it just takes a conversation like this to really make people aware. Hey, it's the stakes are not that high. So having a conversation with you or someone from your team is not. The next moment, you're being pushed in front of an ABC camera and that's it. So I think that's the thing. I only have one more question and then maybe, Clara, if you had. But I was wondering, Kirsten, is there anything we didn't ask you that we should have in your opinion?
I think we've covered lots of material. I think my message is clear. We're here to help. I think there's a great opportunity here. I also think that the world needs us. Things are complicated in the world of media, in the world of public engagement, in a world of populism, in a world of fractured democracy. The idea that universities, ephemeral, adding knowledge to the world and sharing that knowledge with a new generation is something that gives me cause for great optimism in otherwise dark times. So I think if I were to say, what gets me out of bed in the morning, it is that constant quest to try to make the university better with that work. And if we can do that in some small way, and if by talking to your listeners in some small way we encourage people to do that, then that make me very happy.
I think that's a wonderful way to end that episode.
And we almost forgot. Is it?
Oh, is it busted or is it dusted?
We're getting
rusty.
Oh, no, we're getting better at this all the time.
We're getting better.
Okay, also because our brains are shutting off at this point of the year.
I don't know, busted or dusted external engagement?
So busted is...
Have we successfully unpacked this word to, what's the word I'm looking for, to just let it...
With your like Clara is now making a gesture with her fingers that indicates like some fairy dust.
Fairy dust has been propagated around
We've had some fairy
waves. No, but it's propagé in French. Like,
didn't say it is propagé.
No, it's like this, fairy dust being sprinkled. Thank you.
We sprinkled a little fairy dust on the word of engagement, and your listeners understand what the university is trying to do, and people inside the university understand that there's help available and encouragement to do it. Then I'd be very happy.
Okay. Well, I think it's busted in a beautiful way.
Sprinkled dust.
Sprinkled dusted. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for taking the time to speak with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you around in the world of...
I hope to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.